Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
We're almost at the end of 2025. It's time for Fearless Forecasts for 2026. Talking real estate. Everybody likes to talk real estate, although maybe the past couple of years, not so much. 2024 wasn't great. 2025 has kind of been in the dumpster for real estate transactions across the country. Big slowdown in Toronto and Vancouver. Prices are well off the highs. We've even seen interest rate cuts at the Bank of Canada. 4 in total. Mortgage rates have come down, and even that hasn't really spurred things on all that much. So the Bank of Canada this week has held steady on interest rates, and borrowing costs are expected to hold steady here by the looks of things early into 2026. Are we due for an economic recovery, a bounce back for the real estate market next year? Well, Royal Lepage is in with its forecast for 2026, and they figure that the year will see a modest increase in overall sales and pricing activity, with the exception of Toronto and Vancouver. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. Welcome to In This Economy. My name is Mike Eppel. Joining me on the line is Shawn Zigelstein, broker and team leader at Team Zold, Royal Lepage, your community realty. Hello there, Shawn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Mike, how about yourself?
All right. Thank you. Although, I mean, you're right in the middle of it. This year has not been the greatest, let's face it. Now, when we talk real estate, Shawn, the thing that gets me is the fact that, you look at the overall numbers. You really have to drill down to certain pockets of the cities, what's selling, what's not. Are people moving? Are they just waiting around and sitting on their hands a little bit? What have you seen for the most part this year in your area, and what you're hearing from others?
No, and I think that's really a good point to look at, because a lot of people, they are looking at the entirety of the market, and the press releases are all, market is changing, market is down, market is not what it was. That is correct across the board, no matter what. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to say that it's fantastic in any specific market specifically. But that being said, people that want to buy and sell houses are still able to do so in this market. So whether it's someone who is looking to sell their family home, move into something that's a little bit bigger, maybe they want to upsize. Are there opportunities for them? Of course there are. What if they want to downsize? Are there opportunities for that? Yes, most definitely. I think what we've seen are opportunities for buyers arising now that they were not able to have for the last 3, 4, 5 years. So now we're seeing those buyers coming out that can jump into the market. Lower interest rates are helping them do so with the lower cost of course, the houses and condos that they're looking to purchase.
Yeah. Would I be wrong, though, in saying that there are a lot of people who are just kind of in stasis right now, and as much as, they don't know what the economy is doing, you hear the headlines, all that kind of stuff, and regardless of where mortgage rates are, a lot of people are just kind of stuck, and with that, they're not selling. And there isn't, their inventories come on the market, but a lot of, and again, I'm coming from this from an anecdotal standpoint. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you look at it, the market always expands to the fringes. And then when it contracts, it also comes out, outside in, so to speak. And that a lot of the things on the up for sale right now are going to maybe have a tough time selling, and maybe it's not what people are looking for.
They are. The product is taking longer to sell. Buyers are definitely, sitting on their hands right now. They're on the bench. They're waiting to get called in. And I think the smart buyers, the first-time home buyers that are finally able to afford product are jumping into the marketplace still. We've had a number of first-time home buyers that have bought this year, and then a number that have lined themselves up to buy in early 2026. There's definitely inventory that's sitting out there in the marketplace, and it's taking significantly longer to sell, and I think what we saw last number of years is almost like a false market. When you got sales numbers up in the 120,000 range, just from a increase in market conditions, very, very low interest rates that we had, it was almost like a competition to get into everything, that everybody wanted to outbid everybody else. And it was like, well, I paid this much to get this property. Now the buyers are being a little bit more cautious, and they're like, well, I'm not going to overpay. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to wait. And if a property is out there that I like, well, you know what? I'm going to wait and see what happens with it and see if it sells or see if it sits there for some time. And then I can have a little bit more negotiating power.
Yeah. Although I'll say, like, my wife and I have looked around a little bit, and there's nothing that really has caught our attention per se. And then you've got, at the same time, if the condo market has dragged everything down. Again, when you look at the overall numbers, that has certainly been an issue. And a lot of those properties, you look at the shoebox condo, and those aren't selling right now. And as we still need some price adjustments.
We definitely do. There is a lot of inventory with the small ones, right? You get the studio apartments, you get the small 1 bedrooms. They're not moving. When you look at the 2 bedrooms or even larger units, those are actually selling and doing pretty well on the market and selling relatively quickly when it comes to all the other product that's sitting there. We've noticed a domino effect, and I've been, stating this for the last year or so, that we need that domino effect to really start, because if the small condos start selling and those move ups go to the bigger condos, and then those people will start going into the townhouses and semis and small detached homes, well, then that creates that entire domino effect, and then potentially better product. Like you said, your wife and you are looking out there here and there, not necessarily aggressively, but you're not seeing anything that's catching your eye, because the good inventory that's coming out is either extremely overpriced because they think we're back in 2022, or it just hasn't hit the market yet.
Well, let's face it, kind of the Saturday morning MLS search with a cup of coffee. That's still a thing, regardless of what the prices are up or down.
Well, it definitely is, and something will eventually catch your eye, and then you'll be like, well, let's go take a look at it. And it takes everybody a little bit of time, and everybody is taking their time. They're being extremely cautious and extremely patient in this market.
Well, you were talking really about what it was running on momentum there for a while, wasn't it? Like, because it was things going up in price attracts people more than when things are on sale. It's that reverse psychology. It's like the stock market to some extent.
Well, it's almost like the fear of missing out, right? A lot of people have FOMO out there, and I think that's what it was in the real estate market at the same time, was just having a significant case of FOMO, that they would just go running to see properties. And we would put properties on the market during the peak, and you would have 10, 15, 20 showings booked in the first 24 hours of a showing, which was unheard of, but it almost felt like people wanted that chase. Now they're feeling it, of course, because the prices have come back down on those properties that they purchased a number of years ago. And of course, they're feeling it in their pocketbooks when it comes to the selling side of things.
Isn't it interesting how we've gone from, we need all this housing, there's a housing shortage, and yet anything that gets built is sitting. And the developers are basically saying, well, if I can't sell it, I'm not going to build it, and development costs still have to come down. And now it's the complete flip of that narrative. And I don't even know if we've got a housing shortage still.
I would hate to be a politician, because I think anything that you're going to say either way is going to be wrong. Is there a housing shortage? Is there an affordable housing shortage? That may be more of the question, because I think there's a lot of product out there. There are opportunities out there that builders will put out as soon as they know that the product is actually going to sell. But so many of them have pulled back, which we've noticed with new construction of condos, and even subdivisions have completely stalled and then stopped sales for the time being.
Another thing I would suggest is that the narrative you hear, and maybe this is true of all social media, you go on X and you would think that the market is crashing, because there's this, I don't know why it is, but there's this effort to talk things down and see, they're losing all sorts of money. But again, I'm seeing, again, depending on what it is, certain properties are still selling for over asking. Is this an indication that A, stay off social media, but B, you need a good broker to help you out, to figure all this out, to say, look, it's not horrible, it's not great, it is what it is, and explain, really what's going on in the market right now?
100%. I say that everybody, we get calls all the time from just random people that have a question about a property, and all they ever say is, "Oh, well, we just want to deal with the listing agent, and that's it." And I said, guys, it's great to want to deal with the listing agent. However, treat your realtor as if it was a lawyer or a financial planner or an accountant of yours, and make sure that that's one of the professionals in your little circle that you can count on and trust to give you the right advice at the right time to really explain things to you. Because yes, we are seeing some multiple offers out there, but traditionally what we're seeing is people are undervaluing those homes significantly in order to drum up that interest. And we're also seeing it a lot of the time after that house has been listed for several months at a much higher price, and then comes down to try to get those multiple offers. So, there's different ways to get it done. And it's really a matter of how much they really need to do in order to get the sale to happen. And it really depends on each person's individual situation. But I always say to people, if you're not going to work with the listing agent who you're going to call, and very, very few people end up doing that, find yourself a realtor that you trust, that can give you professional advice and be in that stable of professionals for you.
But don't you need a separate broker when you're buying something? Haven't they changed the rules? Just refresh my memory on that. Like
they have changed the rules a little bit with representation and how exactly it works. There are still ways to deal with the listing agent, but you're not being represented the same way that you were at another point. So a lot of people will then go to lawyers and try to get advice from lawyers who, of course, don't know the local real estate markets. They may be able to write a contract, but they don't know the difference between extras in one house and extras in another, or what something might back onto and what the valuation might be of that home compared to another home. All they can do is give you the legal advice when it comes down to actually writing the offer.
I mentioned off the top that the Bank of Canada held steady on interest rates, and mortgage rates have come down, but I mean, they're nowhere near as low as they were in 2020 and 2021, of course, at the peak. It's been kind of interesting that, we have seen interest rate relief such that it is, but even that hasn't been a big catalyst. Is that still more or less a psychological adjustment that buyers have to still make? Because, you're looking at 4.5%. Well, it's not the 2% I was paying earlier. Heck with it. I'm not buying anything. So, like I say, is it a mindset? Because historically speaking, 4.5, even almost 5 is more the norm.
Well, it's still a great rate. Like if you really look at it, but we almost had free money at a certain point. So when the Bank of Canada is handing out mortgages less than 1% on a variable rate mortgage, it's free money for you. The Bank of Canada has now dropped 9 times since the peak. We have not seen a change in the real estate market. We've actually seen it drop since all of these interest rate changes have happened. So the question becomes, are we waiting? Is it the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Who knows why people are waiting? Is it the fact of uncertainty around the market when it comes to tariffs? Is it their job security? People are now potentially being called back to work 5 days a week when they purchased a property in the suburbs and now are going to have to look at a commute of an hour and a half to 2 hours every day. There's so many outlying factors that we're trying to dissect to break it down and say, okay, what is the main reason why people aren't jumping at the market when we've seen these 9 drops? And there's really no indication of one singular reason why. I think it's a group of everything there.
One thing I would argue, though, that is if you're because prices did go up as much as they are, the size of the mortgage that people have to take for the most part is larger. So when you compare 4.5% on a 5-year on $100,000 or 4.5% on a $500,000 mortgage or what have you, the monthlies are a heck of a lot more. So,
Definitely.
is it still tough to compare interest rates, I guess, again, a lot of times it comes down to the monthly payment.
It does come down on the monthly payment. Yeah, if they can afford it, they can afford it. If they can't, they can't. And that's with any type of home ownership at any time. But I think the majority of Canadians want to be homeowners. I know Royal Lepage has done studies in the past, and even millennials and everybody was like, "Oh, millennials are never going to want to buy a house." I think the number was something like 65 or 70% of millennials that were questioned said that they want to become homeowners, and it kind of changes the philosophy of what are they looking to buy and how soon are they looking to buy. But the average Canadian first-time home buyer is in the late 30s now. So they're in their late 30s before they're buying their first home. So it's taken people a long time to save up the down payment and then qualify for the mortgage they're going to need, and of course want to spend that amount in a mortgage as well on a monthly basis.
Yeah. Well, again, the entry level house. I mean, yeah, you have to save up more nowadays. It's different than certainly the way it used to be. I did want to drill down a little bit more on the 2026 outlook, because the Royal Lepage, that again, the headlines that
Yes.
Prices and sales will kind of stabilize over next year. And again, who knows what's going to happen 12 months from now, let alone tomorrow. But anyway, but again, that's a nationwide thing. But the one thing that stood out was the fact that, prices in Toronto and Vancouver are still expected to be a little bit under pressure. But then I look at that and I go, okay, what are we talking about in Toronto? Are we talking about the GTHA? Are we talking about the 416? What are you saying?
No, they're talking. Yeah, they're talking the GTHA. They're not just talking in the
That's a big
area. It is a big area, and I think that when they break down the numbers and we try to compare apples to apples, because that's really the only way you're going to get legitimate numbers. When I'm looking at comparables, even for clients, and we can see the same house, because you get a lot of cookie cutter subdivisions, let's use as an example. When you've got the identical house selling 1 year and then sell a year later or 2 years later, and you can see those actual changes taking place, I think that then justifies the thought process that, okay, we're not going to have the same increase projections that we've had in years past. Let's get a little bit more realistic here, see what's happening in the marketplace, and make that judgment call that affordability in those two major centers is still going to be a little bit difficult for people to get into. And, people are going outside of those core areas in order to purchase properties if they can do so with their jobs as well. They can move out of province. They can work from home completely. And we're seeing those other cities do really well throughout even this past year.
We're into already the depths of winter, and we're not even into winter yet. But at this time of year, I'm thinking that next spring, when he's talking about the springtime real estate market, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of pent up demand, because it has been so slow for the past little while here. Is the Christmas season and over the holidays in the early part of the year, is that kind of maybe a better time to start looking, just to maybe get ahead of the competition, as it were?
Yeah, it's not a bad time to start looking at all, because typically what we'll see is the people that want to be on the market are the people that are serious about selling. So those buyers that are going to go out during this time of year, hopefully they're going to be serious buyers and not just tire kickers, right? When you get into the spring market, and hopefully we have a spring market this year, because 2025 spring market was a little bit of a whimper. It was nothing really substantial when we saw it.
Trump was doing a few things.
He was scaring, I think, everybody out there. So are we expecting a huge jump come the spring market? It would be fantastic. Typically, I remember I've been in this business 22 years, and I remember when I started, and the markets would be very cyclical. You would get a very slow winter market, a very, very busy spring market. Summer would slow down a little, and then the fall market would kick off again. And I think we're looking at hopefully getting back to something like that you get that cyclical type of market where winter season, you're still selling property, sometimes for very good values, because the more serious people are on the market and looking to buy in the marketplace. So, there's opportunities out there no matter what and any time of year. But I think right now is a great time for people to buy real estate.
One thing I've noticed this year too, though, is the sold conditional, which certainly wasn't a thing just a couple, 3 years ago. But that indicates to me that, people are buying and then they have to sell their home in the process. I mean, that again raises some sales issues, for lack of a better description, because if you don't sell your place, then you can't complete the deal on the other end. So are you seeing much of that where you are, or is that just kind of a function of a slow market right now, and that's probably going to disappear in the new year?
I think it just depends on the property. If you've got a house that's been sitting around for a long time on the market, you get a strong offer that you don't believe you'll match on another type of offer, and the seller's property, the buyer's property is then a sellable property. Mm-hmm. Would you consider taking that? Yeah, you are seeing it a little bit. I wouldn't say it's happening often. I would say that your conditional period right now is typically your 5 banking days for home inspection and financing, which again, a number of years ago, people were going out without home inspection clauses, right, without financing conditions. They were just going in with a firm offer. Here's my check. I've seen the house for 15 minutes and I'm ready to buy. So we are seeing conditions of the home inspection and financing coming back into play. We are not seeing too many of the sale of the buyer's property coming to the market again, unless it's been sitting out there for quite some time and they think that's the best deal that they can get.
Yeah. Although, from a seller's standpoint, putting your house up for sale and doing the deal and then hoping that you find something in short order, that's not without risk either. When the inventory levels are a little bit lower, maybe not, the areas that you want to buy in, maybe they're not available.
Well, that's exactly it. And there are opportunities out there to get different conditions in offers. Maybe you get a flexible closing. We just sold a condominium, actually, and that client had to go purchase a property. So we asked for a flexible closing. Oh. The buyers of the condo were renting a property and said, no problem. You've got a 60-day window here that you can move the closing any day within that time frame. Whatever you like, go find a place to buy and let us know when you want to change the closing to. So you will have those opportunities as well.
Well, that's I always look forward to New Year's, just cause.
Well, a new year, a new vision. That's how you look at it, right?
Right. This year has been fraught with way too much anxiety. So
I think there's just anxiety and just a lack of stability. And I think that's what Canadians need right now, is just a little bit of stability in their lives, not have to worry about things, spend time with their family over the holidays. And hey, what says love better than, buy your spouse a house? I think it's fantastic.
That's very, wait, don't tell my wife. That's Listen, it was great talking to you, Shawn. Appreciate it.
You too, Mike. Really appreciate the call.
All right. Happy holidays.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
And that was Shawn Zigelstein, broker and team leader at Team Zold, Royal Lepage, your community realty. You are listening to In This Economy. My name is Mike Eppel. I appreciate your feedback on this or any of our other episodes. If you've got some story ideas, please send them to me. And my email address is mike.eppel@rci.rogers.com. On social, I'm at Eppman, that's EPPMAN. Love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening.